Today on the EOR podcast, our guest is Jay Ramsden, known as the Empty Nest Coach. After more than 3 decades in education, Jay has dedicated his career to helping parents rediscover purpose and passion when their kids leave home. He's a certified personal and executive coach, podcast host, and the creator of This Empty Nest Life. His work guides people through the grief, identity shifts, and new possibilities that come with this season of life. Today, we're going to unpack how to move through this transition with resilience, how to find your next chapter, and something I know we'll connect on, how focusing on effort, not just outcomes, can make this journey more meaningful. Jay Ramsden, welcome to the EOR podcast. Let's go. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Effort Over Results podcast. I'm your host, Quinn Magnuson, and today we're diving into a topic that hits home for so many people, including myself, the transition into the empty nest years. Jay Ramsden is known as the Empty Nest Coach, and he has dedicated his career to helping parents rediscover purpose and passion when their kids leave home. Certified personal and executive coach, podcast host, and the creator of This Empty Nest Life. Today, we're going to unpack how to move through the empty nest transition with resilience, how to find your next chapter, and something I know that we will connect on, how focusing on effort, not just outcomes, makes this journey more meaningful. Jay, welcome to the show.
Oh, Quinn, thanks so much. I'm pumped for the conversation today.
I was saying before the show, it's exciting for me because my wife and I recently got into the empty nest mode. Our son actually moved out 5 years ago to go to college in the United States, and our daughter did the typical rebound, and I'm sure we'll talk about that on the show today.
Oh, yeah.
She was out, she was in, she was out, she was in, and then finally we said to her, you know what, our relationships must better when you're living on your own. And so now we've been officially empty nesters for 2 years. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the philosophy behind what you bring in your coaching, and really just the experience of being at that age where empty nesting happens, and the struggles people go through, because I genuinely think there was a struggle for us as a married couple with our kids leaving home. You spend your entire life, basically, or more than half your life, becoming or being parents to your children. It's so funny because you spend so much of that time going, man, when is this over, right? Like, when are they going to move out? When are they going to give us some time to ourselves? And then when it happens, you sit there kind of twiddling your thumbs, looking at each other like, okay, what do we do now? So let's talk about this. But first, I want to talk about your background and how you decided that this was going to be your life's work, is working with empty nesters, because you spent over 30 years in education before moving into coaching. So what pulled you towards working specifically with empty nesters?
Yeah, I love that question, Quinn. And it's an interesting transition, both for myself and people that go through empty nesting. For me, it chose me. Let's just say that. I was out there working in education for 30 years. I was kind of top of my game for tech people. I was the board chair of a nonprofit that met for tech folks. And when I left that 30 years behind, I'm just like a lot of people, like, oh, what do I do now? And people were like, oh, you'll kill it as a leadership coach. And I started that. I'm like, yes, I like leadership, but I wasn't passionate about it. Yeah. And then I got into kind of like, well, maybe I'll just be a general life coach. People have lots of different problems, and I can literally coach anybody on anything. I know that about myself. And that was kind of just here and there. But then when I started talking about like certain topics that hit home as me as an empty nester, but not saying the words, I started to attract people who were in the same space and time as me. I was like, oh, there's something here. Like, people don't talk about that transition going into the empty nest life at all, right? It happens and we're expected to just kind of move on, and nobody says, this is the struggles, this is how it's great, here's what's happening. And people think of it as this moment in time. Like, the kids move out, okay, so that's the transition. No, you talked about your daughter coming back and forth. No, it lasts for like 10, 15, 20 years, depending on when the kids leave home. And that's where I got super fascinated about, like, that time span and what people do about it.
Yeah, Jay, because it's more than just them moving out. There's the lead up to it, which are the conversations you and your spouse have about, let's say when the kids are even seniors in high school. And I know in the United States, I love it because I find that kids in the States go away to college. Up here in Canada, they tend to stay closer to home, but they go away to college. But you're having those conversations with your spouse about, What happens when, when David, goes off to college and the house is just the two of us, or when both kids are gone, or even when later when they meet their significant other and now they're married and they're officially gone. But there's sort of that pre-conversation that you get excited about because like we're gonna have the whole house to ourselves and we're gonna change the basement playroom into speakeasy. And we're gonna have some fun with this. But then there's also that grief, and that loss, that fear of we won't, are we still parents? Or like, because I believe every parent sort of feels once a parent, always a parent. I could be 75 years old and my 55-year-old son, 50-year-old son is still my son. And so you're right, you go through that grief and loss, but there's probably stages, right? That the pre-conversation, the actual time when they do move out and maybe they rebound, come back a little bit, but then that official when they're not coming back for sure. Are there actual stages to that, Jay?
There are stages like that, and there's also emotional stages that go along with it. There's the grief stage. We talked a little bit about, yeah, people feel that grief, that loss, that disconnection. Then there's relief to a certain extent. Okay, they're off at college, they're settling, it feels like it's okay. And then there's joy. And people, when I say grief, relief, and joy, people think it's linear. It's not linear, right? You can jump all the way to, some people jump all the way to joy because maybe they didn't have a great relationship with their kids and like just be
Right.
gone. And then you have people who have grief and then they get to relief and then the kids come home for a holiday in school and then right they're back to grief again. So there's just a span that covers everybody. Everybody's different. That's what fascinates me about this time frame is that everybody goes through it different and everybody expects it to be differently. Some people talk about, hey, what are we going to do? And other people don't talk about it at all.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's blindsiding when it happens. Then you're really staring at each other because you haven't even had a single conversation about it. And at that point, people decide, oh, maybe we shouldn't be together anymore. Or yes, let's rekindle and reconnect and figure out what life looks like. But what I find fascinating, it is so unique to each individual and each individual couple that it's almost kind of hard to say, oh, it's a definitive way that it happens for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's I think I find it both exciting and fascinating, and I'm curious about it all the time. It's like, well, what is everybody's unique experience?
They say that, and I want to because you brought it up, I want to talk about like separation and divorce in the big picture of this. They say that when people get divorced, it's generally one of two things or three things. One, it's money issues. Two, it's when the kids are younger and you're just going through the terrible twos or childhood and there's just arguments all the time. You have no chance to connect and be intimate with each other, amongst other things. But is there any data or research behind couples that split up or divorce after the kids are gone, like after you're empty nesters? Because one or two things I could see happening, and you're the expert, so clarify on this, but either you now have too much time together. It's kind of like when people retire too. It's like, I wish my husband was back at work because he's driving me nuts around the house. But same thing here with empty nesters is like your focus was so much every day on the kids' schedules and getting them to sports, practices and getting them to school. And then eventually they leave and now you don't have that routine or that responsibility. And then you're kind of once again sitting there looking at each other and there's almost too much, what is it? Familiarity breeds contempt. But then also maybe there were couples who were just waiting for the kids to leave. So once again, is there any research and data behind that?
Yeah, so it runs the gamut, but also at least in the U.S., they call it gray divorce,
Mm.
right? So you get the gray hair and gray divorce, people over 50. It's the single most quickest or largest, I don't want to say growth, but expansion of divorce that there is in the US. Like
Huh.
more and more people are getting divorced after the age of 50. And
Wow.
for a lot of the reasons that you hit on, it's like people go through life and sometimes there's two breadwinners, sometimes there's a breadwinner and primary caregiver. And I don't like to assign gender to those because it's so different now. But sometimes you have both people who are out there working hard and going, and the kids is what keeps them together. And then they look at each other and those lives kind of maybe have formed a V from the kids out. And they're so far apart now that they just don't know who they are anymore. Or you have somebody who's the primary caregiver and somebody who's the breadwinner, and the breadwinner is just keep going, going, going. And this person is like, well, I was connected to the kids. I want to get reconnected to you. And there's a disconnect there as well. And so that's the piece that I think people don't realize happens is that it happens so frequently at the 50 plus. age where people are like sit and look at each other and go, I don't know you anymore, or who you were isn't who you are now, and I've changed, or you're still the same and I've changed a ton because I've done work on myself, or I've looked at different ways to live life, and now we've grown apart even more because I've been working on myself and you haven't. And it happens, you mentioned it happens the same thing in retirement. Women are really, really, really good at making groups and connections. Men, we're not so good at that. And so typically a man's connections is work. His identity is wrapped up in work, in his title.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when that stops, and the woman at home who's been the primary caregiver, like they've made connections, they know how to remake connections, they're really good at that. And then they're like, well, this is my space. Like, this is still my job. The house is still my job. Like, go home, get out, like, get away, like, go find something to do, find some people. And that also causes some rift. So it
Yeah.
happens from the time the kids leave home. I mean, there's people who are getting divorced in their 80s, which, right? It's like,
It seems sort of like, what's the point?
but the point is, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
And so, and on my show, I talked to a couple of people who are experts in this, one from the relationship side and one from the more of like the infidelity side. And they both were like, yeah, there's lots of things happening here that cause a rift at that time. So, and that's just one piece of the puzzle for when this transition hits.
Yeah. A few episodes ago, we had Dr. Jack Stoltzfus, who's an expert on basically launching. His book is called "Launch Your Adult Child," and I love that title because it's like, yeah, there's a few times I've wanted to do that, but he talks about how to get your adult child to finally move out. And something interesting about today, especially post pandemic. And the virtual world and the Gens and the Gen Zs is that, and the millennials, is that a statistic came out, I think it was last year, that then people or over the age of 30 are still living at home. And it's interesting because in North America, it's sort of part of the timeline that you should be moved out by the time you're 30. I would hope. But, at minimum, when you go to college or once again, you meet your significant other, now that let's say that's 24 to 27, but more and more adult children are still living with their parents. And the interesting point that I want to bring up with that, and Dr. Jack brought that up, is that he goes, in North America, we're so used to our children, getting up, moving away to college, and then finding their spouse, and then they're out of the house, and we're empty nesters at 50, 55. They leave at 25, let's say. But he goes, there are hundreds of cultures and groups around the world where multi-generational living is normal, where you have the grandparents, the parents, the children, and sometimes grandchildren all living in one house. Now, they may not necessarily pertain to empty nesting, but do you ever deal with people who want to become empty nesters and have to counsel them and their adult children into finding a way to separate, meaning the adult children to move out?
Yeah, I haven't worked with any clients specifically on the issue, but it comes up all the time in social, like
Yeah.
in comments. It's like, how do you move somebody on?
Yeah.
And it's like, such an interesting concept because it is so unique to the US. And I don't know about Canada, but it definitely in the US, it's like timeline, go 18, you go. Where I have really close friends who live in Spain, and their kids are still there, they're in college, but it's so traditional, like it's so normalized so that they don't move out until they get married. And
Yeah.
then they don't go far. They stay close because community and family is such an important thing. We talk about family and community here, but it's different how we talk about it in the US. So helping kids launch I think is kind of meeting them where they are, because it could be some kids won't launch or can't launch. And so what's the rationale behind that? For the ones who could, like the parents see it as like they could, it's like, what are the steps you take to kind of move them on? And I think it's just having open and transparent conversations around, hey, this is what life looks like for you now, and this is what life could look like for you in this next phase. But then I also hear from people, well, it's tougher now. It just costs so much more,
Yeah.
right? It costs so much more. And I can't, as a parent, people will say, I can't, as a parent, support them in that. Some parents are fortunate to do that, right? They can launch their kids, and even though they have jobs that may not pay the full, they're able to support them continually that way with monetary. So that plays into it as well. So I think it's, again, I keep saying everything is unique to everybody, and it is. I don't think there's one big way to be like, here's how you launch a kid, because every human is different and every relationship is different.
Yeah, I'm guessing, but it feels to me like when I say our generation, so Gen X, and so we have Gen Z children basically. This is the first generation where millennials and Gen Zs soon, or some of the older ones are struggling, like you said, to find places to live because they can't afford it, which is now causing, interestingly enough, which is now causing actually exodus out of large cities into rural areas, which is funny because 80 to 100 years ago was the opposite way, right?
Right,
But you're
exactly.
seeing that, but you're also seeing a lot of parents willing to just have their children live at home as long as they get along well enough, right? They just become roommates essentially. And Dr. Jack even said this. He goes, if you get along with your children and they're cooperative and they're independent, he said, collect some rent from them. Everybody's happy. He goes, there's nothing wrong with that. Um, when we talk about wanting to be empty nesters, do you ever have discussions, and once again, maybe not with your clients, but just in social passing, people who are like, I never want my kids to leave. They're and is that a psychological situation, or is that just, hey, we're a happy family, we love being together? Like, do you ever get those situations?
I do, and that comes up again in social conversations
Yeah,
and in my feed and comments on my social channels, is that parents, especially the ones who are launching kids now, right? That they're launching their kids, they may be in their late 40s, right? So that's a little bit of a generation gap. Like they brought
yeah,
their kids up differently than we did, even though it's 10 years different. They still brought them up a little bit differently. And so those people typically are like, no, I want them to still be, involved in the family. I don't want this thing to disconnect. And I think to a certain degree, they would welcome the opportunity for them to like stay close to home, go to college close by. Um, it's the ones whose kids are going really far away that they have a hard time grasping. Like, oh, they're 12 hours away, or they're 6 hours away, or they're on the other coast. Or some people even go to university in a different continent. And I think for parents that have raised their kids more as, mm, I had a really good phrase I used to use with parents at that time. It's like, yeah, you got to still have that boundary of
yeah,
like parent and kids as opposed to just being friends. I think it's more parents who have fallen into that category of like, no, they're like my bestie.
yeah.
And this happens a lot for parents who are maybe the single parent and they have one
Mm,
child. And
sure.
it's been great. Like they rely on each other almost like siblings more than parent and child. And I think those situations is where it causes a big rift, is where they are like, this whole part of me is now, this literally other half is going on. And now I'm home alone. And what
Yeah.
does that mean for me?
Well, and I think it seems to be most recently, and once again, I keep referring to Gen X and Gen Z, that our generation, our meaning the Gen X, was the first real generation of parents to want to become their child's friend. My mother, who was a boomer, you were parents and you were children, and there was a distinct separation there. Certainly any generation older than that, but Gen X almost wanted to become, because you got to remember, Jay, and maybe you agree with this or disagree, and please feel free to disagree, is that Gen X, we were the feral children of the night. Like we were grown up in the 70s and 80s where we were just like let to go outside at the start of the day, and when we came home, when the lights came on, street lights came on, right? Both parents started working. We were told, when you get home, just there's food in the fridge, watch TV, don't burn the house down. We were left alone. And it's almost like Gen X said, we're not going to do that to our children. So we're going to try to become more in tune with our children, and to almost to a fault because of helicopter parenting and so forth, right? And so now you have a generation of parents who are like I said before, wanting their children to stay home, or are at least okay with it. But the question I have for you is, when you mention the words, well, let's go here, Jay. The first stage. What is the first typical reaction of empty nest parents when their children move out? Because everyone, even the people that see me and my wife and what we're doing now by ourselves, they're like, must be awesome. It's like, yeah, it is, but it's not as awesome as you think. So is that first stage truly joy, or is there almost like, the four stages of grief? Is there the four stages of empty nesting?
Yeah, it really, the very first stage is grief.
Okay. Even though they
You,
think it's going to be,
even though they think that it's going to be joy.
yeah,
Yeah. And sometimes it's joy for one parent and grief for another parent. You want to talk about causing issues because nobody wants to talk about that. I don't understand why you're grieving this, like you're sad. But the
Yeah.
grief part is really you're grieving a loss in family dynamics. You're grieving a loss in the community that you have. I call it like the rhythm and energy of a home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kids go, maybe they're in sports or they're in arts programs, they have stuff after school. Like there's a rhythm to the day. Like people rise at the same time, people go to bed at the same, people come home at the same time. Kids come home at one point, whoever is working outside the home comes home at another. Like there's dinner or maybe not dinner. It's like a catch all, but there is such a rhythm and energy to the day that changes.
Yeah.
And it changes for everybody. Obviously, it changes for the kid who leaves because their rhythm and energy is totally different. They're trying to manage that on their own at their new place. The family's trying to do it. You even notice it. I encourage people, like, if you're going through this right now and you have a dog or a cat, watch them. They experience the grief and the change in energy in the house too,
Yeah.
right? Because part of the pact has changed.
Yeah. Oh, that's,
And then, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah. And
recognize that in our
then
pets. It happened. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You can see it, right? If you sit back on it, you're like, oh yeah, yeah. They were like kind of like slumped over or hanging out by the door or waiting for somebody,
Yeah.
especially in the first couple of weeks. Like Billy or Susie puts it home, like their time to come home is like this hour. And like they know the dogs anticipate it, and then nobody comes through the door and they're like, what the hell's going on? Like, where are they? Yeah. And so then that grieving period is so different for everybody based on their relationship with a kid. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's a month. And that because the kids are doing well, the parents are like, okay, we feel better. And then they launch, they kind of launch themselves. For some parents, it could last 6 months. Sometimes it's a year.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 2 years, right? It's how you raise your kids compared to how you were raised and
Mm.
the relationship that you had with your own individual child. And it also is different for each parent. Never want to say like we love our kids equally,
Yeah.
but we do as parents have a stronger connection to one of our kids than the others, just to based upon who we are as a human and who that child is as a human. Like, do they have the same characteristics as us? Not a bad thing. We don't love them more. We just are connected to them more.
Yeah. No, that happens. That happens in our family as well.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, and I know you talk about this, is loss of identity. I mean, imagine working at a job for 18 years and you were the head of, the engineering department, and then all of a sudden you retire or you leave, and it's like, what am I now? As an athlete, like playing professional football and having played, sports, but football for 15 years for me, it's like that's how I identify. That's how people see me, right? So how strong is that loss of identity for parents, for the ones that truly were loving, caring parents, that loss of identity?
Yeah, I love the sports analogy because we see it all the time. People like they're clearly past their prime in
Yeah.
sports, but they keep playing. They go to another team. They hold out for more. It's because of that rhythm and energy, and and the identity piece. I love that you hit on that, Quinn. Is that is so true. Some parents become like their identity becomes the parent of
Mm.
instead of Quinn, the parent, right? Quinn, the individual who happens to be a parent, I should
Yeah.
say. Some people are like, oh, well, no, I'm this. This is my role as a parent. It's my job. It's 24/7. I do all the things. And they get so wrapped up in that when the kids do leave, it is like getting fired from a job. And then they're like, oh, yeah, now what I do? They typically get retired or get fired, but you don't ever stop being a parent, but you do stop being the parent who's kind of in control. And the way that I stage that for folks is in education, we used to talk about there's teachers who are the sage on the stage, there are teachers who are the mentor in the center, and there's teachers who are on the guide on the side. That's just normally how teachers they gravitate to one or the other depending on what age they teach kids, what their discipline is, whatever it may be. But so if for equating that to parent timeline, when the kids are little, we're the sage on the stage. Ooh, don't touch the stove; it's hot.
Yeah.
Like we teach them all of those lessons, and as they get into be like middle school, high school, we move to that mentor in the center. We still haven't lost control. We're mentoring a lot still. We still have so much to impart to them. But then when they go off to college, we still want to be either of those roles, but we're really just the guide on the side. And that means we get to be the guide on the side when they need us, not when we want to impart something to them.
Yeah. I love that. I love that guide on the side, mentor in the center. That's wonderful. I'm definitely the guide on the side, and I've had to really because I was a very involved parent. Like I took the
Mm-hmm.
kids to every one of their practices, every one of their games. I coached 80% of their teams, right? And I was just literally right beside them all the time. And so my identity changed. When I work with business owners, I find it's the same thing for them. For those business owners who started from scratch off the back of their truck, they started the company their own, they were an entrepreneur, and then they grow this business and now they've had it for 15, 20 years and they're still working in the business and they're still, turning wrenches and they're still involved. And it's like, I liken that analogy to being a parent. You don't want to let that child go. And they certainly don't want to sell the business because that's like when your child goes away, right? And there's a definite analogy and similarity there between the two. And so I deal with that a lot in business coaching as business owners who don't want to sell their business even though they're 65 and they're like broken down. It's like, yes, but this is the way this is my business, my child. They'll even say that. It's my child, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting that they talk that way, but I want to talk about maybe some myths about the empty nest that you maybe want to bust right away. What are some myths that people hear about empty nesting that you're like this? No, that's just not true.
Yeah, I think the biggest myth is that as soon as the kids launch, you jump right to joy, and it's just like everybody's off popping bottles of champagne and taking the
There you
cruise
go.
or the big vacation or whatever, right? I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest myth because people develop a whole lot of shame and guilt when that's not how they feel, but that's what they expect to feel, right? Because that's what we've been taught.
Yeah.
It's like kids launch and then life is friends, right? And you go live a life that you want to live. And that happens eventually. So I think that's one myth. I think another myth that happens is that it's the exact same experience for every parent. Right? And we talked a little bit about before is like, nope, Quinn, you're an individual, you're human, you have your own thoughts and feelings. I do the same, and everybody on the planet does. And that's why we have free will to think and feel what we want. And so because people think and feel have thoughts and feelings about their kids leaving that may not be falling into the norm of this, woohoo, it's great. Then there's the shame and guilt comes in. And then what do I do with that? Right? I'm not going to tell anybody because I'm not supposed to feel this way. But that in and of itself happens so much more often than it's this amazing thing.
Yeah.
Like for me, those are like the two biggest things is like people believe it's going to be great. And then when it's not, what do I do about it?
Yeah. And my wife and I experienced that too. Like we did I would say the first few weeks, it was just like, okay, what do we do? This is awesome. We can turn their bedrooms into whatever. But that dissipates fast, very quickly. It's because now once again, I go back to that identity thing. It's like you almost feel like, and I go back to the rebound comment from earlier, you almost feel like, okay, when are they coming back? Depending on when they leave. Like if they get married, obviously it's you hope they're being taken care of and they're gone. For most parents, it's like you kind of feel like there's gonna be at least one or two comebacks, right? One child or the other or both, where they leave and go to college, and then after college they don't know what to do, so they come home and live at home for a while again. Or they try like, hey, mom and dad, I want to go live on my own for a while, and then they try and they don't like it and they come home again. It's interesting because I know you run master classes on like before they leave and after they leave. Uh, is there that feeling? Do you talk with parents a lot about that? Well, I figure they're coming back, so we're really not going to make any decisions yet. Or parents who, like you said, feel that guilt of wanting to make decisions for themselves when their child has gone. So let's talk about that before they leave, after they leave, and the difference in mindset for preparation and response to those.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, before they leave, it's like really just getting ready for when they launch that go off to college, right? That master class is
First big
focused
one,
on,
yeah.
okay, here's the things you can expect. Like, the spring of senior year, at least here in the US, is what you can expect. Here's what you can expect in the summertime. Here's what drop off can look like. Here's how it can be amazing. Here's what's going to happen 30 days after. And here's what you should be striving for after that point. And then after they leave, that one is, I think what happens with people in those two scenarios is like when I get to a point that I'm not sure what to do. And you talked about it as like, this is great. One of the biggest things people think they're like, oh, we can just walk around naked all the time. This would be awesome. Right. And then you're like, well, I still have to live life. I still have to do what I've normally done. For me, it's all about elevating. right? Elevating your life because you have an opportunity to elevate your life. My focus is like, don't wait. Don't wait to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have to be, you mentioned a little bit is like, what do we do? Like, we don't make decisions because what if? What if they come back?
Yeah.
Right? I see that a lot with people like, well, we want to downsize, but what if they have to come back?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What if they come back and you've downsized? You figure it out, right? And there's somebody who talks about this all the time. It's like everything is figure outable.
Yeah.
The
You're
only
right.
thing that's not the only thing that's not figure outable is just waiting, right? When you wait and you delay, you're not making decisions. And the thing that I, work with people all the time, you probably do, is like if you're doing business coaching, is like, yeah, how rapidly can we make decisions?
Yes.
Right. And the same is true for us as individuals, like whether we're single or we have a partner or spouse and we want to do things, do them. Right? Do what's right for you. I call it your me era. It's your time to shine. It really is. Doesn't mean that you don't love your kids or you're not going to support them, but playing the what if game is such a drain for your brain and for your energy.
You're You're speaking our language, Jay. We went through all of that. Like it was like
Yeah.
we we lived in the province of Saskatchewan in Canada. We were born and raised there. My wife and I, the kids born and raised there, and just about 4 or 5 years ago, we're like, what kids are seem to be doing, fairly well. Our son's off in Arizona going to college. Our daughter's got a good job. Let's think about moving west. We want to move towards the mountains to Alberta in Canada, and we didn't because okay, well, is Annika going to be okay by herself, in back home, without us there? You have all these questions. So you wait, like you said, you wait, wait to make a decision. We finally this year decided to pull the plug on me and my corporate job, decided to retire from that early. I'm only 54 and downsize and move to British Columbia, Canada. And we downsized and actually we financially downsized too. And it was like, why didn't we do this 2 years ago? Right. And so I like what you're saying about, make those decisions because if you just keep waiting and waiting, they probably won't happen or it might be too late. And so my wife and I decided that, our late 50s is when we want to do everything that we want to do, travel, do all the things we can do because, after 65, it becomes a little tougher. So I can really relate to what you were saying there, Jay. The one thing I wanted to ask though is, how often do you hear this? And maybe it's mothers with their sons or maybe fathers with their daughters because there always seems to be that unique relationship there between those two. For me as a father, I will only feel fully exonerated of my role and identity as a father when my children are married and have significant others of their own that are taking care of them and they're taking care of each other. Do you hear that a lot?
I haven't heard that specifically,
Well,
but
I'm
I love
unique, I
it.
guess.
So
Yeah,
no, not at all. I guess people probably feel that way, maybe just haven't voiced it in the circles that I run in. But I love that that's a conversation we can have. And my question is where my brain goes with this when you bring it up is like, who says that they're not being taken care of by themselves,
yeah,
right? Your brain initially says they have to have somebody to be taken care of.
right.
I'll release my responsibility of my kids when they have a partner or spouse.
Hey everyone, I'm your host, Quinn Magnuson. Welcome to the EOR podcast, the show for leaders, high performers, and the secrets to grit, growth, and greatness. I want to ask you something. Are you an organization looking to build a rock-solid strategy that will grow your people and end up in increased productivity and profitability? Then I invite you to start by going over to our website, effortoverresults.com, and book your free strategy call directly with me. No obligation, just a friendly one-to-one call so I can learn more about you and your team goals. So if you're ready to get real, go over to effortoverresults.com, book your free call today. And now let's get back to the show. Which is kind of speaking down to them, really, when you think about it. Okay, I've taken care of you for 26 years. I'm going to keep taking care of you until the next person takes care of you. Like you can't take
Yeah,
care of yourself. Yeah, good
exactly.
point. Very
Yeah.
good point. Yeah,
Yeah. It's like, it doesn't mean that you can't support them,
right.
right? We can do
Guide on
that.
the side, right?
Got on the side, monetarily, advice, whatever. But you could live a fulfilling life without a partner or a spouse.
Yeah,
But also having the mindset, well, I've got to wait to release. Like I can't go and do anything until they find somebody. That happens all the time. People actually
yeah,
do that. They wait. They play the waiting game, wait for their kid to get engaged, wait for them to get married, wait for the grandkids. Waiting is no way to live 45 to 65,
No.
right? You're literally in your go-go stage of your later years, right? Once you get past 65 or 70, you go into your slow go years.
Hmm.
And then once you get like late 70s, we'll say 80 to 85, if you're fortunate, you're in your
No go.
no-go stage.
Yeah.
No-go stage, yeah.
Yeah.
Why are we waiting? Literally by waiting, you're waiting to go into your slow go stage
Yeah.
instead of your go-go stage. Yeah.
And that's exactly the reason for the decision that we made was, after 15 years of football and multiple surgeries and being a bit broken down, the idea of traveling and doing a lot of that after the age of 65 just feels very tiring and probably not even doable. But between 54 and 64 right now, it's like, no, we kind of got to take advantage of this right now. And the kids just have to put up with it. And I love, Mel Robbins, theory. It's like, let them and let me, right? It's like, let's just do what we need to do and everybody will adjust. And when we started doing that with our kids, now that they're out of the house, they've actually become more independent. They've actually grown. And that's how you let people grow, is to let them fail, let them make mistakes. That's half the mantra of effort over results. It's like, we're just going to let you put in the effort. And I mean, if you fail, that's fine. You'll learn from it and you'll get better for it. But you can't keep helicopter parenting your kids. You talk about the me era. I know that after the kids leave, it's the me era. What does that mean? And how do people start rediscovering their identity during the me era?
During the me era. So the me era for me is really like shining the light back inward. As parents, we shine the light outward on our kids, on our partner or spouse. If we're working in, outside the home, we're shining the light on the people we work with. Like, it's very rare that we look like actually take the time to shine back inward, shine the light back inwards on ourselves and to say, what do I want? We're so much involved in like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Taking care of other people. When we shine the light inward, it allows us to actually say, oh, what do I want for the first time in my life? And again, it's not in like this selfish, ooh, me era, like, oh, it's just me, right? But I fully believe, like, as humans, if you don't pour into yourself first, it makes it really hard to continue to pour into other people. It's like you're a better version of self when you take care of yourself first. You become more interesting to your kids. If you wait around to get involved in your kids' lives, that is an onerous thing on them. They see it. But if you're out there doing your life, right? For me, it was climbing Kilimanjaro. That just happened to be the spark, right? But it's like going scuba diving, going for long walks, like just focusing on me doesn't mean I still don't like I've lost the love for my kids or supporting them when they need something, but I'm just not waiting around for them to need me. And
Yeah.
that's what I mean by the your me era. Guess what? Inside you're inside of yourself, your me era, it needs you
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you try to get the cat to come to you and you want to pet the cat ignores you. But the second you ignore the cat, it wants to sit on your lap. And I find that
Bingo.
with my children, they know I was always there. I was always there to help them, to fix things, to solve problems, whatever. And not that it was irritating, they just knew I was always there. But then when decided, me and my wife decided to go into that me era, so to speak, and just focus on ourselves and maybe not contact them for a couple, 3 days at a time, they're like, hey, where'd you guys go? Like, what are you guys doing? It's like, oh, we actually drove to, we drove out to Kelowna and we decided to golf there and spend the weekend in the wineries in Kelowna, BC. Oh, and you didn't tell us? It's like, it's interesting how, now that we're ignoring them, they want us to pay attention, right? You
Exactly.
mentioned Kilimanjaro. You climbed Kilimanjaro as an empty nester to show what's possible in this life stage. So how does that experience reshape your perspective on life's transitions? Because one thing my wife and I really started saying to each other, and she had to get me to do this, is we call them light experiments, but it's because it's life experiences, but it's a light experiment. We try things. We're doing, we never say no to something that is possible to do, whether it be going zip lining or travel or whatever. Because life experiences are literally what on your deathbed you're going to talk about. You're not going to talk about, oh, I wish I had a bigger TV or a better car. You're going to go, I wish I had traveled more. I wish I'd seen more. So how did Kilimanjaro and climbing that mountain, reshape your perspective on those transitions, those life experiences.
Yeah, it all came about because I just decided, as the kids launched, and for me, empty nesting happened when it hit me the hardest was when we moved my daughter and son into their first adult apartments a week apart. So for me, that was kind of like, oh, okay, Mr. Logistics, not needed anymore. Like, okay, now what am I going to do? So I went through the whole process of kind of unraveling and figuring out who I wanted to be in this next stage and all of the things, like unraveling my identity as Mr. Logistics. I still play that role when I'm needed, but I'm
Yeah.
not waiting for it to happen. I was like, I'm just going to say yes to everything. And my sister-in-law, who's an adventurer, my wife isn't, but my sister-in-law, she's like, do you want to go climb Kilimanjaro? I was like, okay, yeah. Right. I didn't know
Like
what
it's in
that
your
meant.
backyard. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
let's go climb a mountain. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, sure. And so, but on that journey, what I realized, and it's become my life motto, is like every step has purpose.
Yeah.
And so that is where I was like, if I can be an example of what's possible here in my mid 50s and beyond, why can't other people do the same thing for themselves and the people in their circle and their kids? Right? If you're constantly being an example of what's possible and people are like, oh, well, what did you do to climb Kilimanjaro? I was like, well, I was already doing some things to get my health back in shape, but it was the first hike I ever did. Like that was it. I didn't climb anything else. That was my first like mountain climb. Now I do it all the time. I love it. But
Yeah.
also, it informed me like literally, this step has purpose. I need to put it on this rock. I need to put it this next one here. I said it millions and millions of times. It's so much so that it actually now lives on my left arm. Every step has purpose. And on my right arm is Kilimanjaro. As for me, it's a reminder. Like I have these two tattoos of this is how you should live life. It's like if you want to reach your goals and reach the mountaintop, whatever that is, you don't have to climb a physical mountain. Every step has purpose.
Mm.
And that's what got me to be like so focused on helping empty nesters realize life doesn't end now when the kids launch. It begins again.
Yeah. Truly, it does. It really begins again. And as long as you have your health and you have, the resources to, and here's the thing, you don't have to travel overseas and go to Kilimanjaro to climb that
No.
mountain. I mean, I'm literally looking out a window right now at a mountain. If I
Yeah.
want to go climb it, I can. But that's what, once again, my wife and I talked about those life experiences that you couldn't do when the kids were young. You barely could do it when they were teenagers because they didn't want to go with you. So now you got to take advantage of that because we're not promised anything. I talk about this on almost every episode. It's like
Yes.
God
Yes.
doesn't promise us tomorrow. I mean, when I wake up in the morning and I'm breathing, I'm like, say a quick thank you, and I'm blessed to be alive for yet another day. And we're trying to, experience as much as we can here in the move to British Columbia. Also, I read that you did the Camino del Santiago, and it talks about that you discovered the joy of missing out, the JOMO, as it would be. Yeah. So how do empty nesters practically apply the JOMO concept to overcome that anxiety of separation from their children?
Yeah. The joy of missing out is not being so concerned about what your kids are doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. The way that I applied it on the Camino is the joy of missing out is I was so focused on staying with our group like we had 7 of us that were on the trip. So we were all focused on staying together because nobody wanted to miss something. And it wasn't until like maybe the second to last day. And I always carried food in my pack and I was passing like a river. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stop and eat here. Like they had already gone forward. I was like they had stopped for a break and I was like, I'm gonna keep going. And they passed me again. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna let them go. And that analogy in and of itself, I'm just gonna let them go for people who are empty nesters. And then I decided to just walk my own path. Not that far from the city. But then they're like, oh, we're in the hotel and oh, we're going to dinner. And I was like, I'm eating this snack right by this river. And it was quiet. And other people who were walking the Camino, other pilgrims were passing me by and saying, Buen Camino, which is what you say when you pass somebody who's on the Camino, and just having quick conversations with people. I'm like, okay, this, right? For me was like, that was the moment. It was magical. It was like, oh no, I have the joy of missing out of what the others are doing because I get to have my own experience. And when you
Right.
tie that to empty nesting, it's like, I get to have my own experience now because the kids are having their own experience. They're learning a new way to live life, and I can do the same.
Is it important? This brings up a great question. Is it important for the spouses, so for example, me and my wife, to also have our own experiences, even just in day-to-day life? rather than having, now we have all the time together. But like I said, that sometimes that familiarity breeds contempt. And she says it too. Is it important for us to have our own experiences day to day?
Absolutely. I fully believe like the couples who like thrive together once the kids leave home are the ones who have things they enjoy doing together, but also have things they enjoy doing separately.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't mean we don't love them any less or we don't want them to be in our lives. It's just like, I love this, you love that. Great. We find time to do that plus the things that we like to do together.
Well, and I think
Uh,
there's to cut you off here,
no, 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 no.
there's a
Okay.
tendency to want to stay together because you don't have those other people, your children, to be with. So it's like, okay, now who do I be with? I'll be with you every day, all day. And it's like, no, that's not good for the
Yeah, that's
relationship.
not healthy. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely not healthy because we've formed our own habits over time when the kids were home. And so trying to mess those together and make it happen pardon me, all the time is not a recipe for success.
Yeah. Yeah. What does going slow to go fast mean to you?
Yeah, so that comes from I don't know if that comes when I worked in education. I was in technology, and some people wanted to go faster with making changes in the school environment. And I just said, sometimes you have to go slow to go fast
Yeah.
because when you're talking about change, everybody faces change differently. One of the things I talk about is like the challenge of change. That's where go slow to go fast comes from, is the challenge of change. If you look at the word challenge, you can kind of see the word challenge in your head. On the outside of the word challenge is change,
Mhm.
CHA and NGE. And so you can't face any challenge in life without changing in some way, shape, or form. And if you want to make a change in your life, you're going to face challenges. They go hand in hand. And so when you're trying to make change, you have to go slow to go fast. It's not like, I guess the best analogy is like, if you're going to run a marathon, you're just not going to go run 26 miles today, right? You got to go slow to go fast to get there,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Yeah. Same thing with going up Kilimanjaro, right? The thing they say is the guides say, pole pole, which means slowly, slowly, because our bodies aren't used to the thin air and we need to get acclimated. They can go fast up the mountain. Like
Right.
our guide, his quickest speed to get up was 10 hours. Took us 5 days. So
Wow.
yeah, so like, until you get acclimated to it, then you can go fast. But you don't
Yeah.
go fast out the gate.
Yeah, you have to experience it. It's I liken it to, oh my God, to putting IKEA furniture together. It's like that first cupboard goes slow. It takes you hour and a half, and then the second one goes faster, and by the third and fourth one, you're doing it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's you need to take your time.
I love the analogy of like IKEA though,
Yeah.
right? Let's say you get a dining room table, you have four chairs you have to put together. The first chair goes an
Oh,
hour, and then like
and you make
by the time you're done
mistakes.
with the last one, it's like, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I say that actually because it happened the other night. Like we were putting up new IKEA cupboards in the new place here, and the first cupboard, okay, read the instruction book, make sure, and then I did it wrong because I'm a guy, so I didn't follow the instruction book, and I pull it apart and put it back together. It took about 45 minutes, and then the second one is like, yeah, I know where this goes. All right, 30 minutes, and then the fifth and sixth one, I was like, okay, I was done in like 10, 12 minutes, but that's a great analogy for life. It's a metaphor for life. It's like you're going to try, and this is what effort over results speaks to. Don't stop expecting results and be obsessing over what the outcome is. Expect that you're going to have to go slower, expect that you're going to make mistakes, expect that, but you're going to learn from it all. And then the next time you do it, you're better at it. And then the next time you do it, you're even better at it. And I imagine, there is a synergy between, you know, the empty nest life and that effort over results. It's like once the children are gone, you need to find that daily, those daily efforts and routines that get you into your new life. And I'll be honest with you, Jay, this is something that my wife and I are kind of struggling with right now because I quit my corporate job. I'm just working freelance right now. She's not working at all right now. We're kind of enjoying golfing every few days here. But at the same time, there's no routine. And it's really starting to, for me, who's a routine freak, it's like it's really starting to wear on me. So how do empty nesters forget about results and just daily routine, consistent effort to recreate their new life?
I love that. I love that so much because I do talk about this as well. It's like
Mm.
I'm a big believer in bookending your days,
Mm.
right? It's like have a specific routine in the morning. So from getting up all the way to when you start doing whatever you're doing, even if you're retired and not, you don't have a job or
Yeah.
whatever, like right, have a definitive time you're going to start. So there's a bookend of what your morning looks like, morning
Mm.
routine, and there's a bookend on how you shut your day down. In between, it can fluctuate. But when you
Sure.
get up at 6 and you don't have a set routine and you go to bed at 10 and you don't have a set routine, then think about the hours in between that can be wandering. But for me, it's like I have a set routine. I'm up every day at 6 o'clock
Mm.
and I don't start work until 10. And in between, there's things that I do
Yep.
for my body and my mind. And then I work like 10 to 5 or 10 to 6. And then I have a shutdown, like 6 dinner all the way to shutdown. And then I go to bed at 9.
Yeah.
Like hardcore. Those are like, does it happen sometimes where I get up a little bit earlier, a little bit later than 6? Yes. And go to bed a little bit earlier or later than 9? Yes. But those times are sacred times.
Mhm.
And in between, I do my work. I decide what I'm going to do, and have a new rhythm and energy. But starting the day and ending the day allows you kind of just to bookend it so you can actually figure out what happens in the middle and not make it so open ended.
So I know that you advocate for intentional living, purposeful steps. You've already alluded to that during our conversation today. So in a world that glorifies being busy, and being on social media and showing people how busy you are. And I even have business owners that it's like, look how busy I am. I did 37 things on my list today. It's like, well, those are the fires you started that you just put out. But it's like this constant wanting to be busy. We talk about routine, which is good. I love the bookend idea because you're right. In the middle, you don't know what's going to happen unless you have specifically you still are working while the kids are now empty. You're empty nesters, you're working. But for the most part, let's bookend our days. Love that. But in that world that really just wants people to be super productive and nonstop, that the grind mentality, how do you how do we go back to that, like you said, slow to go fast and make more deliberate choices? Because it's a real fine balance there. Because when you become empty nesters or empty nesters and retirees, and right now I guess you could say I'm semi-retired, I'm struggling with, okay, I don't have kids to take care of. Great, that's good. I also don't have a job to go to. I'm still building, my practice, working on the EOR coaching stuff. But then I feel like I'm going too slow because I need to be
Mm,
building that faster and I need to, get into my new life quicker. How would you coach me through that, Jay?
yeah, yeah. So the going slow part, what I have found, it's I don't want to say it's typical for Gen Xers, baby
Mm.
boomer kids. I don't want to say it's typical, but I've seen it quite a number of times. It's like when you say I'm going too slow, like I always ask people, whose voice is that? Is it yours or your parents? Right. And then where we land is somewhere that if you're not doing, you're disappointing.
Yep.
Bing, 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 right? Like all the bells are going off in your head.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is, I think, a part of our generation nobody talks about. If you're not doing, you're disappointing. Okay. Not going fast enough or you're going too slow for whom?
Yeah. I think I feel like that definitely was a boomer mentality. Like I even remember my grandfather, and I reference this in my book. It's like he would say the devil makes work for idle hands. And it's like, what did you do today? And it's like, what did I do? Well, and it's like, but if and even now, my wife and I, it's like if either one of us sits in front of the TV for too long or has a lag time, or we'll actually even say to each other, hey, I'm just going to sit down for a few minutes, like almost like I need permission to do that. And we do it to each other. We're both very high energy productive
Hmm.
people. And it's like, it's okay to take a break, but it's for I don't want to stay on the empty nest topic because it becomes a break right away. Because when the kids are gone, you go from like frenetic, frantic day to day, routine, sports, school, all this, whatever, to like almost like a drop off. You're going from instead of 0 to 60, you're going from 60 to 0, it seems. And how do you not feel like you're doing nothing, like to stay productive and have that daily routine? Are there any quick life hacks or quick pieces of advice you can give those people to say it's okay to take those breaks. It's okay to not be productive every moment of the day.
Yeah, it's literally a choice you can make in your life, right? People
Yeah,
think, oh, I can't do that, but it's a choice. But what I like to think about is like not what did you do today, but who did you become today?
very
Like
good.
for me, that's like more important. Like you can do a bunch of stuff and become somebody different. You can also do nothing and become somebody different. It's like who
Yeah,
right? You
yeah,
can challenge. I love to challenge people to say, who do you want to become now that the kids are grown and flown? Well, I was a parent. I love that. That's great. You can still be a parent and still love what you had. But how are you going to challenge yourself to continue to evolve? I don't like the word change because people think that means like, oh, I got to do something different. But like, how are you going to evolve yourself? Who are you going to become? Again, going back to being an example of what's possible for your kids.
yeah. It's this conversation has been very introspective for me because and that once again the reason why I wanted to have you on the show because this is what we my wife and I are going through right now, and it's very interesting, and I think people have a very thin view of really what empty nesting is. Like you spoke to earlier, it's like, oh, they think empty nesters do whatever they want, travel, life's just awesome, it's just, champagne on a boat every day. And it's not. There's grief, there's a feeling of loss, there's a feeling of loss of identity, you or those people who really never let go of their kids. I know my mother, for example, really had a hard time. She was a single mom, and that's an interesting dynamic. I would think you would
Hmm.
maybe speak to that it's different for a single parent. You know what, let's talk about that for a few minutes, because my mom, single parent, like from the day I was born, basically. So my brother and sister were 6 and 7 years older than me, but she raised three kids literally by herself my entire life until I moved out and she became the empty nester, but by herself. What's that like? How do you deal and coach someone through an empty nest life as a single parent?
Yeah, yeah, and I see that a lot.
That's got to be
Um,
harder.
that's not my like what I know as a
Yeah.
someone who's married for 30 years, but it shows up so much in my social media feeds and comments is like, well, try two different ones. Try being a single parent or try having your kids going off and being a widow or widow,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like, oof, yeah, people do experience differently. But when you're a single parent, we alluded to it, talked a little bit about before, is like when you're a single parent, you are so connected to your kid, they actually become your partner,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like you rely on them so much more and vice versa because there's only one or each of you. But in your case, you had three, right? Your mom had three kids,
Mm.
right? So it's that community is like, boys, you're the guys I lean, like that's who I lean on.
Yeah.
I need you to be able to do things around the house because I am only a single person and only have so many hours a day and so many hands. But if we come together, right, we could be better. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think for those parents who may be listening who are single parents and their kids have gone off to school and they're trying to figure stuff out, it's like, yeah, it's no doubt it's harder. And it can be just as hard for somebody who has a partner or spouse who doesn't get it, right? Where the one partner spouse is jumped to joy and the other one is grieving. So that's where community comes in. I think that's such an important part of this process is like when you find a community of people who can like say, yeah, we're going through the same thing, right? Is like using your resources around you to find people who are experiencing the same thing as you is kind of like the first step, I think, in the process of moving forward, especially if you're a single parent.
Obviously this is your life's work now, and you work with empty nesters, and that's what you focus on. Is there a how do I put this, is there a demand from empty nest parents to seek counseling, for lack of a better term, coaching and counseling, because obviously you might seek that for other, like the normal things that you would go to seek counseling for or personal coaching, but this seems very very niche and unique. Are you seeing more of a demand for this? Is there something different about this generation of parents that are retiring now and their kids are moving out, that being Gen X, I would imagine, and maybe what you've researched in the past?
Yeah, there is definitely a demand for it
Yeah.
because it's a life transition. And
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
what I like to tell people is like, I deal in life transitions. It's no different when if you have a career and you get fired, or you have a career and you want to like move up the corporate ladder. It's no different if you get divorced or if somebody passes away or you go from one elementary school to middle or middle to high school, like all those are transitions that raise questions.
Yeah.
And again, like our brains want to answer questions. If you leave those questions unanswered, that's where you get stuck.
Mm.
And so this is a transition that you see coming, but you don't prepare for. And the question is, what do you want to do about it?
Yeah.
And that's what I talk to people about all the time. Say, well, okay, that's fair, right? I get it. You're struggling, you feel bad, and you're grieving, and you're not quite sure to move forward. But you could stay there in that way, shape, or form, or you could do something about it. What do you want to do?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's I don't know if it's niche though, right? So I apologize for saying that. It's not
No,
niche. It's specific, but at the same time, I mean, it's literally happens to every family all the time. Always has.
having
And
kids,
parents.
people having kids, the kids have grown up and moved on. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's
So it's
niche.
not,
It's
yeah,
niche because it's how I market, right? I
sure.
market to a specific niche, and those niches have certain ebbs and flows to them in the spring and the fall. But it's something I can talk about. But my clients aren't all empty nesters. Some of them have kids that are in high school and they're learning how to let go and move on. I have
Yeah.
ones whose kids are in their 30s and they're trying to figure out dynamics of when the kids have significant others and how that changes the dynamics. Again, like it's a transition. We experience them all the time. Empty nesting just happens to be a big one
Yeah.
that kind of smacks a lot of people in the face.
Yeah. If my research serves me correctly, I believe you're in the process of writing a book called The Empty Nest Life: Navigating the Challenge of Change, or has that come out yet?
No, it's not out yet. I'm in the editing stage, so it'll be coming out here hopefully around Christmas is where I'm targeting, and so we'll get that done. But another venture that I've also started that goes into all this conversation is a clothing brand called Every Step Has Purpose, which is
Okay.
launching on October 1st.
Wow.
All of it ties together. This empty nest life and Every Step Have Purpose is all blended together because everybody's journey through life is unique. And that's
Yeah.
where every step has purpose. So every step you've taken, you and your wife have taken to get to where you are right now was unique to you,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm a big believer in wearing your story. I mean,
Mm,
literally, I didn't have any tattoos until I was 48, and now it's my entire story. It's my family. It's climbing Kilimanjaro. It's hiking. It's
right.
like I'm patting my body where those tattoos are, like signifying that. And
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, every step has purpose. It's part of your journey. And I say, wear your story,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like.
Well, and I've said this on past shows, and once again, whether my guests or my listeners are faith based or not, I mean, I believe, for me at least, I believe God has a purpose for me,
Mm.
and everything that happens, it happened for a reason. Like it's all part of my story, but
Exactly.
when that story starts to stop is when we stop taking action, when we stop making decisions, when we just basically slow down and do nothing. And that's why effort over results really was born out of this. I had to stop thinking that I had to achieve everything, meaning everything I took on had to be a win. It had to be a championship. I had to be the best at it. And it turned, and even being the best parent, but it turned into, you know what? I'm going to put the efforts into the things that I want to happen, and then kind of let the universe, let God figure it out from there, because I can't control that part. I can't control other people. I can't control what's going on externally. I can only control my own attitude and effort, which is, I know, cliche, but it's true. And I think same thing with life experiences, and every step having a purpose is that take those steps, regardless of what they are, because they will later on show you the purpose they served. So in writing the book, though, this emptiness life, and during the process here, did you learn anything new?
I think I've learned maybe just things about myself, right? Is
Yeah.
like if you stick with something, you can achieve what you want to achieve, but also it goes into go slow to go fast. Like I haven't tried to write this book quickly.
Mhm.
Like it's almost like it's marinating. I write a little and I just let it sit and then I write a little bit more. Ultimately, I'm trying to tie it to be like there's 12 chapters, which literally tied to almost like the 12 months of the empty nest journey from the when the kids start school, launch and go and like what comes next. I think what I've learned most about either both empty nesters and myself is that we all have an opportunity to kind of re-engage with ourselves and live life differently. And I think so many people are afraid to live life differently because they've been living it one way for so long.
Yeah. Well, it's the comfort zone, right? And when you're comfortable, you're not growing. in the middle of the mountains now. Jay, this has been such a powerful conversation. I love how you frame the empty nest not as an ending, but as a beginning. And I truly believe that too. And I know that the people that you work with, and I'm hoping all my listeners now see that your approach does really align really with the effort over results philosophy, which is awesome. So for those listening, if you want to learn more about Jay's work, check out This Empty Nest Life, his podcast, connect with him on Instagram at The Empty Nest Coach. Where can people find you and reach out to you?
Yeah, and Quinn, they can find me the.emptynest.coach on Instagram and TikTok, and then thisemptynestlife.com is the website that ties it all together.
Excellent. And you said the book is probably coming out around Christmas time. That's great. What's the most exciting thing about putting this book out? What do you want people to get from this when it does get released?
Yeah, I think what I want most people to take away from it is like when we're talking about the challenge of change, that is what this book is really about. And we didn't talk about it when I meant it before, but the challenge of change, where change is on the outside of challenge, inside are three little letters, LLE. And I'm a big believer that that stands for sometimes you just have to let life evolve.
Nice. I love that. Final question, fill in the blank. The empty nest years are the perfect time to blank.
Do whatever the hell you want.
Simple.
Exactly.
Just do whatever you want. Well, once again, Jay Ramsden, thank you very much for being here. I really enjoyed this conversation. When I choose my guests for my podcast, it's not just about business. It's about personal and professional development. And so that today's conversation not only helped me, think about my own life in terms of empty nesting, but I'm hoping it really helped everybody out there. So thank you very much for being on the show today.
It was an absolute pleasure, Quinn. Everything we talked about today can apply to younger folks too, right?
Yeah.
It's just concepts. It's just concepts that we or me happen to apply to the empty nest years.
There you go. Thanks again.